too bad. We are going to itch. I have got more mosquito bites around my ankles from this weekend. Just there, just the ankles, and they itch so bad. I guess mainly because I wasn't wearing socks all weekend. We're in the last lesson on the book of John. We're in John 21 tonight. And we're going to talk about Peter's second chance. Now, next week, we're going to start with Ezra and then Nehemiah. Who wrote Nehemiah? By the way, anybody got a guess? You think it's too easy to say Nehemiah now, so you're scared. Ezra wrote Nehemiah. It's thought. Nobody knows for sure, but it's thought because of the writing styles and all that good stuff. I do. I need some calamine on it or something. Anyway, so tonight, as we look at this, hang on just a second. Anyway, I don't have my notes here. They're not showing up. I'm going to go backwards. I don't know why it's doing that to me tonight. All right, so anyway, John 21, verse 17, we read, he said to him the third time, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he said that to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Why do you think Peter might be a little concerned about Jesus asking him, do you love me 3 times? Because his previous behavior, I mean, he had messed up. Betrayal, disagreements, misunderstandings, even exhaustion can wreck a relationship. Hal and I were talking about somebody we know jointly. A few of us know from here, and someone said something to them, they got hurt by it, and it's wrecked a relationship, and it has kind of like throwing a rock into a lake, the ripples go out. Somebody at camp, well, now you've got somebody mad who did a lot for camp, and they're done. So it doesn't take much. Disagreements, misunderstandings, exhaustion, they can all hurt. And we all have firsthand experience in this, but God reminds us that what we think is impossible, He can make possible all the time. So think of a time you've helped restore a broken relationship. Sometimes it can be just a word. I don't know if you remember the story, but when we were going to church in Conyers, Georgia, one of our friends had broken his hand pretty bad. And so these 2 fingers were splinted straight up. The rest of the arm was in a cast. It was the weirdest thing ever. But he accidentally cut off another member getting ready to pull into the church lot. And he waved to say, I'm sorry. But that's what they saw there. And for the longest time, there was these bad feelings. And finally, they came to me and said, we're really angry about this, and the elders haven't done anything. Maybe you could. And I don't know why I was getting put in those positions. But anyway, it's like, well, what did he do? And I said, he would never do that. So once we talked it out, he's like, wait a minute, that's when my hand was broken. So just a clarification. Now, had it been done that day at church or a week later, it would have made things a whole lot easier to mend. So, sometimes we have to go a long way. Sometimes it's just a word. Other times, it can sever a relationship forever. So, I want you to think for a second about when you've helped restore one and how were you able to help. We are meant to be peacemakers, not peace breakers. Our job is to fix relationships. And again, sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes, again, we can just help a little bit, and it can go a long way. So, Peter's a little ashamed of what's been going on. He knows his failures. And remember, he had boldly proclaimed, I will never forsake you, Lord. And just a few hours later, he's eating his words. Because we know he did 3 times to deny knowing Jesus. The question that must have lingered on in his mind is whether or not Jesus would give him a second chance. And eventually, Jesus drew Peter aside for a heart-to-heart talk over breakfast. So anyway, I'm going to read 1 through 19. After these things, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. And by the way, Sea of Tiberias is also known as Sea of Galilee. But the emperors had a way of renaming things. Kind of like calling it the Gulf of America. That didn't seem to catch on very well, did it? Anyway, Sea of Tiberias. And he revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, who was called Didymus, Nathanael of Canaan in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. They said to him, we're coming with you. They went out and got in the boat, and that night they caught nothing. But when the day was now breaking, Jesus stood on the beach. Yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. So Jesus said to them, children, you do not have any fish to eat, do you? They answered him, no. And he said to them, cast the net on the right-hand side of the boat, and you'll find fish. So they did it. And they were not able to haul it in because of the great quantity of fish. Therefore the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. So when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, because he had stripped off for work, and threw himself into the sea. But the other disciples, they came in their boat, for they were not far from land, only about 200 cubits, which is only about 300 feet, by the way, dragging a net full of fish. So when they got out on the land, they saw a charcoal fire already made, and fish placed on it, and bread. And Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish that you've now caught. So Simon Peter went up and hauled the net to land full of large fish. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. None of the disciples ventured to inquire of him, who are you? Knowing it was the Lord Jesus. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and the fish likewise. Now this was the 3rd time that Jesus had revealed himself to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. Now when they finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said, tend my lambs. He said to him again a second time, Simon, son of John. A lot of you, your old translations would say Simon Bar Jonas. Same thing. Son of Jonas, which is John in our language. But Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, shepherd my sheep. He says to him the 3rd time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt, because he had said it this 3rd time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know all things, and you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, tend my sheep. Truly, truly I tell you, when you were younger, you used to put on your belt and walk wherever you wanted. But when you get older, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will put your belt on you and bring you where you do not want to go. Now he said this, indicating by what kind of death he would glorify God. And when he had said this, he said to him, follow me. All right, so things haven't changed much, huh? We start out in diapers, we end up in diapers. People leading us around. So, let me change my page here. So why did Jesus choose to reveal himself this way? Give me some of the reasons you may think that he did that. And the Bible does not say, therefore, no bad answer. Well, I guess there could be bad answers, but no bad answer.
Well, the one that I think of is the fact that he's eating with them after dying and being resurrected from the dead.
What does that prove?
Well, it proves he wasn't just a spirit.
And remember, remember they thought that the first time, right?
Right.
In Luke chapter 5, in Hebrew it says miasma, which means it's a ghost. You know, it's a spirit. So, yeah, that's one of the things. What else? What else do you think the purpose of this, considering where they just were the day before and what they were doing? Maybe he's giving them a new commission? Or no, he's reminding them of what the task he set them to do, because they lose their way for a little while here, don't they? When this is happening. So they're giving him a new mission, and he's doing it in a time and place that is very familiar to them. So camp this weekend, you know, the director comes up to me on Saturday night, and I know it's kind of late. Can you do communion? Well, I do this for a living, so yeah, it's not too late. You know, I can do this. So, you know, I sat there during one of the Bible class times writing a Bible study for that next morning. But, you know, he puts them in a time and place where they're comfortable and where they can do things. He's also demonstrating provision. I will care for you. You know, Luther says God doesn't always call the equipped, but he always equips the called. So he's letting them know, God and I are going to equip you. We're going to give you the ability to do this. Also, you know, what are we going to call the disciples after this, or the apostles? Call them fishers of men, right? And so he takes them fishing. You know, so Jesus uses this because it goes back to that earlier episode in Luke chapter 5 where he did this. And remember, in that one, they were still out in the deep. And it was morning, and he told them to throw it the other side. This time, or throw it back out one more time. This time, it's morning, and he just says the other side of the boat, which is the craziest thing ever. I don't know why they did it. You know, if Hal and I are sitting out catfishing, and we ain't caught anything on the right side of the boat, I'm not putting it on the left side necessarily. You know, just as I might go down river 100 yards. I'm not just going to go over here. That doesn't make sense. And so I'm kind of surprised that they did it because they don't know who it is. Remember, how did he phrase that question? And all my life, I had kind of missed this until this past week. Remember what Jesus said to them while they were still out in the boat?
Children, you have fish.
So he says it. I mean, they have no reason to think that's Jesus, because that could be anybody from town saying, "Did you guys get any fish tonight?" You know, because they're going to sell the fish as soon as they get back to shore. So it's a regular question. I was watching a special a while back about in Ethiopia, and one of the ways that they're making money is there's lots of these guys that go out sardine fishing, and they don't make money unless there's fish to sell. And so when they come back, you show them coming back to land, there's hundreds and hundreds of people waiting, because we know Ethiopia, there's very little food. And so they're waiting to buy fish. And it turns into bedlam when the boats come in. It's just craziness. But same thing here. They expect people to come down to buy their fish from them. So anyway, come on. There we go. So, in what way did they react when they knew it was Jesus? What does John say when he realizes who's on the shore?
It is the Lord.
He caught on quick, didn't he? He caught on quick.
He said all the fishing in the net.
I think it's funny that John put on his shirt.
Yeah.
You know, he'd stripped down to his undergarment to fish.
Simon Peter heard
I mean, yeah, Simon Peter, and he's going to jump in the water and swim in his outer cloak. I don't get that either, but you know, I love the little things. Yeah, I guess respect. But, And another thing interesting about that is what did the other disciples do? They waited until they could row in the shore. Again, it's only 300 feet. So the length of this building is, I think if I remember when we remodeled, like 50 feet from front the pulpit to the back window. So, I mean, they're not that far. They're like down where that little solar farm is out there. Not that far, but so how does Jesus choose to restore his relationship with Peter? What does inviting him to sit down and eat do for their relationship? So, okay.
Sharing a meal.
So if so the other night I had a girl come at 4:30 in the morning to the nurse's cabin with her counselor. She was having a panic attack, and so she thought she was having an allergic reaction. It's just a panic attack, but she had just graduated. She had no clue what she was going to do with her life. We had talked about next stages at camp, and so anyway, I talked to her for about an hour, got her calmed down. The whole time I'm thinking, there went my night's sleep. Talking to her, and when she was done, I hugged her. We talked her out of her, and then you show her that I care. You know, I care for you. When Jesus said, let's eat, what does that say to Peter, who's already feeling bad about what had happened so far?
Acceptance.
Acceptance. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm not mad at you. You know. We try to do those things. Sometimes when you think somebody's worried that you're mad, you try to show them, I'm not mad. I'm not upset about this. So Jesus invites them, but then what else does he do? He says, tend my lambs. What does tend my lambs mean in a literal sense?
Shepherd over his people that they were to call out.
Do you think he's talking about all the people? He's used the word lambs specifically the first time. Who would the lambs be? Maybe the young, the babies,
Those that don't have the ability to watch out for themselves.
spiritually immature, those who haven't been taught yet. You know, that's the first one. Take care of those that need extra care. It's how I interpret it. Now, you say what you want, but second, he says, shepherd my sheep. What does a shepherd do for the sheep? Protect them. My rod and my staff, they comfort me. Or thy rod and thy staff comfort me. The shepherd protects them, especially in that setting where there were wolves and bears and mountain lions and lions. And the shepherd takes them and herds them at a place of safety in the night.
Even not even always wild critters. There's things that they can fall into, and sometimes it's those types of things. It doesn't have to be something attacking them. They can just get themselves in trouble.
Anybody ever watch the movie Heidi?
What is it?
Heidi with Shirley Temple? That's a good one.
Goodness.
We're going back a couple of years.
A couple.
What was her best friend's name when she went to live with her grandfather? Remember?
Peter
Peter. And what did Peter do for a living?
is a shepherd.
He was the town shepherd. He walked through the town, and all the people let their sheep go to join, and goats, to join Peter, and he took them up on the mountain so they could graze, and then he brought them back. A good shepherd doesn't sleep. A good shepherd watches the sheep, moves them from grass to grass, because sheep cannot stay on the same grass, especially when you're in a desert region. There's only so much you've got to let it recover, because the sheep rip it up. They don't just bite off the top like cattle do. They pull it up by the roots and eat. So, and then the last one, he goes back to tend my sheep. And Mike, I think this is where you were going the first one. Now I want you to tend the older ones. So, this is why the Catholic Church insists he was the first, that this made him the first pope. Because they see this as him, of God giving him the job of watching over all Christians. Jesus is doing an object lesson, but Jesus is using things they know, and he's saying, okay, take care of the babies, feed them and protect them, and take care of the older ones too. You know, this is now your job. So, and Peter, how did he respond to Jesus' questions?
He was a little bit put out because it was asked 3 times. You know, most of us, when people ask us the same thing 2 or 3 times, we get a little intense.
It always annoys me a little bit when we were younger, and Allison would say, "Do you love me?" When she was asking for something, it's like, no, don't tie the two together. You know, if I was annoyed, "You love me?" "Yeah, I love you." Just, what's the old saying? "I love you, but I don't like you right at this moment." No, I've never said that. But anyway, so, you know, yeah, he's getting hurt by this.
I think he had, starting to doubt. What are you talking about, Jesus?
Yeah, why are you
Haven't
asking?
forgiven me?
Well, I was going to say, I think Peter, because he knew some of what he had done, was overreacting to the question. We all do that. If we have guilty feelings within, we overreact sometimes.
Is there a significance to Peter betraying 3 times and Christ asking him 3 times? Are you sure you love me? I don't know. I don't know that if Jesus would do that. But
I've always heard that part of the explanation was the word love, which held several meanings in the Greek, comes into play in this unit.
and I should have looked. I didn't look. Yes, I've heard that too, and I forgot to look up the words that we're using.
And agape, I think Jesus was asking for agape, and I think he was getting a response that did not mean that, or was a misunderstanding. So I think he was getting frustrated for that reason. In other words, it's kind of like asking a question and not getting the answer you're looking for. You know.
Give me 2 seconds, and we'll come back and we'll look at that, because I think it is an important point. I'll grab my Greek Bible here.
Yeah.
Should have grabbed my glasses while he's at it. What verse were we on there? 12.
Starts, or 15 starts.
Mm. So the first one he uses, okay, so it says, the direct translation is just, "Do you love me more than these?" And the word that Peter uses in response is, "I am fond of you."
Which is kind of like a Leo type,
Mhm.
brotherly love type.
Jesus uses the same word all 3 times.
I've always heard it was agape. But,
So Jesus uses the kind of middle of the road word, probably is basically agape. He says that twice. Peter responds in the word that is, "I am fond," more than we would call fond, but "I'm fond of you." So the 3rd time, Jesus says, "Peter, are you fond of me?" And he says, "You know." And then Peter says, let's see, Yeah, he responds the same way again, just, I am fine, so, that didn't really help much, but,
Respond,
huh?
respond, how do I just like you?
The way it's being used there is stronger than we would use fond. You know, I'm fond of my sister-in-law, but I don't know that I love, no, I'm teasing.
I think
Uh,
Jesus was looking for a real commitment there.
I think he was too.
And he wasn't convinced that that's what he was getting from me. It's almost like, yeah, somebody knew something, and say, yeah, I'll take care of that something. You know, and they may or may not have. So when you ask for a firm commitment, that's different.
Problem I'm having trouble reading that to figure out is it's showing the Aramaic, not the Greek, and in that verse, and I don't read Aramaic, barely read Greek. But, anyway, so you know, yes, I'm very fond of you. I mean, we'd have to go with that. And so Jesus then says, "Then are you fond of me?" Again, why do we think he asked him these times? I think he's one giving him a mission statement. I don't know if you guys know what a mission statement is. A friend of mine, Don Langdon, was in Vietnam, and he was a young lieutenant in Vietnam, and his boss said, "I need you to go out there," and he had just graduated from West Point, so he's all rules and regulations, right? And so his commander there says, "I want you to take a fire team and you go out there and scout and handle your business." And he's like, "Sir, I need an order. I just gave you an order. Take a fire team, a strike team, and go out." And he said, "I need a written order. That's the rules. If I'm going to take them into danger, I need a written order." So I just remember him saying, he learned a big lesson that day because his commander said, "Stick out your hand." He took a Sharpie and wrote, "Go kill them." And he said, "There's your order." And so he did. You know, believe, we have a mission statement of believe. It's basically, our goal is to always believe in the children, whether it's provided for the children themselves, their caregivers, or extended family. Our focus never wavers from the child. We are committed to making a positive impact in everything we touch. That was not original. It got changed. It's going to be changed back. But same point, though. Your mission, if you work at Believe, is to care for children. Don't get distracted by anything else. Children first. And so that's what he's doing with him there. He says, "This is what you are to do. Here's your mission statement. There should be no more questions in your mind, Peter. This is what you've got to do." I spent all week trying to remember Langdon's name. Just now, right then, it popped into my head. How did he emphasize the connection between love and service?
Well, he tied it every time to taking care of those that I've entrusted to.
Is that a job that brings you fame and fortune? Glory?
Nobody remembers the shepherd, who the shepherd was. Mostly.
Well, we talked about that at camp. We have a guy at camp that has done maintenance for years. Like probably 30, 40 years he's been doing it. And people don't know, unless you've helped him, how much he does. He would leave his job after a 12-hour day and go out there and work for 3 or 4 hours. And this week we found out that our fire the oil was starting to boil. It was getting really, so we about had a fire. He didn't say a word to anybody. He got some tools out, drained it, took the fryer apart, cleaned it, fixed it. But he didn't tell anybody he was going to do it. He didn't ask anybody for permission. He's on the floor, greasy and oily, whatever, because it had to be done. And he's taking care of the kids. He's shepherding the sheep. He happens to be an elder in the church. He understands the concept of my job is to tend these lambs. You know. So, some thoughts on this. You know, Peter had run. He turned his back on his dearest friend. We don't know where he is now, or where he had run to, but we do know At this point, he's back home and he's getting in his boat. He's grabbing his nets with his brother, and he goes out. You know, did you catch any fish? No. That they say. You know, they're probably wondering if this guy's crazy when he says, just throw it to the other side of the boat. But you know what? They do it. And I don't know if there was any discussion, but we don't know. It just says they did. I don't know why, but they did. But there's no way. You know, he throws it out. I don't know if you guys ever seen him in third world countries fishing, but they throw the net way out there, and then they start hauling it in as soon as it starts to sink to catch what's in it. And so Peter throws it out. He's got his hand on it, and when he thinks there's not going to be anything in it, he can't move it. There's 153 big fish, the Bible says. That's a lot of fish. And so, you know, it feels like it's going to, I don't know, tear, break. So he's reaching down and pulling to get that crazy net up to the boats and get it in. And you know, that's when John's looking at the shore, he says, this is my version of it. I think that's him. I think it's Jesus. You know, who else could do this? You know, it's kind of his thought process. So Peter looks and, yeah, it's Jesus, not Jesus the teacher. This is Jesus, the one that defeated death. He's back to set them on track. And Peter, who has done him so wrong, jumps in the water and goes. And I just think it's interesting. By the time they get there, there's a fire going. There's bread warming up.
Not just a fire, there's coals.
Yeah, there's coals, which I've always thought was probably one of those small miracles we don't know about. Or, you know, the Bible's not clear because he's there, and then all of a sudden there's a well-defined fire, probably a big stone on top of it to cook the fish on. You know, so he gets there, stumbles out wet, he's standing in front of Jesus and the prepared coals. And for once in his life, Peter doesn't know what to say. You know, his jaw's hanging over. He just, I mean, because what words would suffice when you have just, you promised you'd be with him and you abandoned him. You promised you would never let anything happen, but you're not there on Golgotha. You promised you'll never forsake him, but you ran away and hid. You know, that's not much of a promise keeper there. So, but Jesus says, sit down and eat with me. Let's just sit down and eat with me. You know, it's just you and God. God knows what you did. Nobody's proud of it, but what do? Well, I look at three of the things that kind of he did. One, or four, he stand amazed in front of God. I love that gospel song. I can't think. I can only imagine. You know, will I dance for you, Jesus, or will I stand in awe? You know, will I speak to you, or will I not be able to say a word? I don't remember the exact lyrics, but I love it though. Stand amazed. He's acknowledging Jesus has come back like he said he would. Jesus invites him to try again by saying, tend my sheep. And now he's there with him. He can never unknow that Jesus was back. So here's questions you have to answer. What does failure do to a person?
Breaks your spirit.
Breaks their spirit, that's a big one.
Makes them doubt themselves.
Mm-hmm. Makes them afraid to try, to do anything.
Could lead to substituting. Well, let's put it this way. Trying to drown your sorrows, if you
Drugs and alcohol, sure. Suicide.
will.
Yeah. They don't help, by the way, but it can destroy a person psychologically. It puts them in a tailspin, depression, all this. And it can make them withdraw even socially from everything. So Jesus can restore people, or he does restore people, by first forgiving them. You need to give people permission to forgive themselves. If we sit back and say, well, it's their problem, and we know they need help, we know we see them, but give them permission to forgive themselves. Jesus reaffirms his word. Maybe he did say it 3 times to remind them of his failures, but at the same time, he gives them a mission. He doesn't give it to anybody else, although it's for all of them. He says, Peter, do these things for me. He offers them grace. He empowers them to do their job, and he loves them unconditionally. Sometimes it's very hard to remember that, sometimes we say, I'll forgive you, but we don't really give full forgiveness. And they can sense that, they see it, and so we have to love them unconditionally. Biggest fear as a parent and a grandparent is your children will go astray. What do I do? Well, you have to still love them unconditionally. Doesn't mean you have to approve. Doesn't mean you have to encourage actions, but you still have to love them or you'll never get a chance to get them back. And we all know it doesn't always work, but it's what we have to do. So what tends to hinder us from accepting and enjoying God's forgiveness? What are some of the common things that stop us?
We stop ourselves because we can't forgive ourselves.
That's a big one. Guilt and shame.
We're not worthy. Not worthy.
There's no way God can love me after this. Okay.
Here I go again, I messed it.
Our unbelief resists confession, keeps you from mercy. Perfectionism can make you feel unworthy. You think you have to be super Christian. You don't want to revisit that painful sin. I had a friend who was going through counseling once for physical and emotional trauma she'd gone through at the hands of her husband. The psychologist she was seeing, though, had her tell what had happened week after week after week. Now, once you tell it once or twice, you're done. Now you move to healing. But as long as you keep reminding them of what they've done wrong, there's no healing. There never will be. So, what hope does this story offer you? And then that'll be it for tonight. What hope do we get out of this?
Lord,
Forgiveness. I've got down, John 21 offers hope that Jesus meets us in after our failure, restores us by mercy, and calls us to follow him with purpose. It also reminds us that our confidence is not in my strength, it's in Christ's sovereign care and faithful presence. Jesus seeks out the tired, the discouraged disciples and provides them the ability and the encouragement to come back. Peter fell badly, but he's not thrown away. He's restored and recommissioned. That final call, follow me, means that even after failures, horrible failures, you can still come back with new life and new direction. That's the cool thing about God's forgiveness as opposed to a spouse's forgiveness or family forgiveness, whatever. When God says you're forgiven, it's forgotten. When you do something to me and you say, I'm sorry, I don't always believe you. And that's human nature, but we've got to move past that because God's unhuman. He's better than it.
you always say you're sorry.
Yeah. All right, we will get the kids to come up and then we'll have our devotional.